Alrighty, so that took a little bit. Welcome to Ask the Curator. With me, I'm Katie. I'm the interim director curator here at the Clark Museum. And today we're going to be changing it up a little bit. And instead of you guys asking me questions, I'm going to be asking you guys questions. So we got trivia. So the way this is going to work, there's 5 categories of 5 questions each. And as we're going through, you guys will put in the comments what you think the answer is for the question. I'll give everyone a little bit of time and then we'll show you the answer. And we got 2 fun things in addition to that. We have one is that if you're the person who answers the most questions the fastest, you'll get a prize. And if you're the person who answers the most questions correctly, you'll also get an answer, or you'll get a prize, sorry. So keep tabs on how many questions you answer right. We have our staff member, Dana, who's gonna be keeping tabs of the people who answer the most questions, or yeah, the most questions the quickest. So no need to keep tabs on that, but keep your own score just in case, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'll give you about probably 45 seconds or so per question to answer, and then we'll move right along. All right, so let's get started. So our first round is places, and the information for this was taken from a fantastic book called Place Names of Humboldt County. And that's by Dennis and Gloria Turner. I like to call it one of the top 3, like the 3 textbooks, I'd say, of Humboldt County. This is one of them. So, first question. The town of Carlotta, which is located out on the 36, was named after the youngest daughter of this locally famous lumberman's nephew. What is the name of the lumberman? We got William Carson, we got John Vance, we got Noah Falk, and Elijah Falk. So go ahead and write whatever letter you think is the correct answer in the comment section, and we'll see who gets it right. So I'll give you a little bit of time there. So if you know the answer or just want to take a guess, type it into the comment section so I can see that you've answered. Okay, so we got one person voting A. Anyone else want to vote? Okay. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get the answer for this one. So the answer is B, John Vance. And here's a photo of John from the museum collections. And it's funny because most of the time when you see photos of him, it's this older photo of him with his little glasses that I don't know if those even have little legs on them, but they look like they just sit on his face right there. So yeah, so Carlotta is named after the nephew of John Vance's son. So we'll go to the next one here. All right, so number 2 for places, Petrolia, which is out on the coast in southern Humboldt, was originally known by this name before it was changed in 1865. As a hint, the original town name still persists in a nearby road. So, could take your guess. Is it Cape Hope? Is it Mendocino? Is it Union, or is it Mattole? We got one voting for D. Remember to put your votes in the comment section so we can see them. Petrolia. Petrolia is a fun place. Oh, we got a comment that says, I'm not knowledgeable enough to play. Well, you could still tune in and take a guess or just join us to learn some things. That's kind of the goal for this, is to kind of be a little educational, a little fun, kind of a little bit of everything. And if you are playing for score, be sure to keep tabs on how many questions you get right. We have our staff member Dana on the line, keeping tabs of people that answer questions the fastest. And if you're either the person who answers the most questions the fastest or the person who answers the most questions correct, you'll get a prize. All right, so Petrolia. So let's see what it was originally named. So Petrolia was actually formerly named Mattole, and the name can still be seen in the nearby road, the Mattole Road, which is a really beautiful drive if you ever get the chance. If you go through Humboldt Redwood State Park, out Mattole Road all the way to the end, you'll end up in the town of Petrolia. And then if you take that road and continue on it back inland, you'll end up in the town of Ferndale before getting back on the 101 and heading back north or south or wherever you're coming from. It's a beautiful drive. I highly recommend it. Petrolia, I'm not sure if its name changed specifically because, I think it did, change specifically because oil was discovered in Petrolia, hence the name Petrolia. And at the time, it was some of the most fine oil you could find. However, it was really hard to get out of the ground. People said that if you could get the oil out of the ground, it hardly needed to be refined because it was so, great oil. So that's part of how Petrolia got its name. And it's a cute little town. There's zebras out there somewhere if you're out on Mattole Road. It's very beautiful out there. So we'll go to the next one. This town, originally named Minersville after its founder Isaac Miner, changed names following a national tragedy. What is the town known as today? We got Samoa, is it Eureka, is it McKinleyville, or Trinidad? Go ahead and give you some time to answer. This town, originally named Minersville after its founder Isaac Miner, changed names following a national tragedy. What is the town known as today? Samoa, Eureka, McKinleyville, or Trinidad? And if the name Isaac Miner sounds familiar, he's the guy that founded, or had his, he built it, put his name on the Miner Theater, which is in Arcata. And the story of Isaac Miner and the Miner Theater is actually a pretty fun one if you ever get a chance to look into it. So we got one guess for C, for McKinleyville. We got a question from Dana. I can't play, can I? Well, you could still play, but I don't know that your score would count towards a membership. So, all right. So, dun, 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 get your answers in. I'm gonna give us the answer. Alrighty, and here we go. The answer. McKinleyville. So McKinleyville got its name after the assassination of President William McKinley. This is a photo of his memorial services that were held at the courthouse. And you could see it was a pretty big affair. I'm trying to remember if there's something else I'll mention about McKinley, but I think that'll be later on. All right, so pretty spectacular picture, something you don't see very often. I really like these old pictures of the courthouse. It's a pretty gorgeous building, and I heard from someone that you could see kind of where the front grand staircase is. There's a door under it. Supposedly during Prohibition, people would store liquor under there for the police to partake in. Could very well be a Prohibition era rumor. Could very much be true. You know, worth some more searching. So on to the next one. Orick was the site of a village that later became the town of Orick. At the time of colonization, members of what tribe lived here? Wiyot, Hoopa, Yurok, or Karuk? And I don't think I pronounced the original name of Orick properly, so sorry about that. There's a couple funny stories about how the town of Orick got its name. One of them had to do with this original village site name, and then one of them had to do with someone saying it was the sound that nearby frogs would make. Orick, 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 you know, so depends who you ask. Everyone kind of has a different little story. So if anyone wants to take a guess at this one, Orick was the site of a village that later became the town of Orick. At the time of colonization, members of what tribe lived here? Wiyot, Hoopa, Yurok, or Karuk? We got one guess for C. Anyone else want to guess? So we'll go ahead and hop to the answer. Yurok. So members of the Yurok tribe lived at what is now Orick, and members of the Yurok tribe still live around that entire area. This is a photo of what later became 101. If you're familiar with this part of 101, it's where you go past, there's like a pretty good sized stretch of a spit between a lagoon and the ocean, and then the road kind of curves inland as you're going into Orick, and this is that kind of area. So yeah. So go ahead and get to the next one. The Corbell brothers came to Humboldt County and established a mill in a town formerly known as North Fork. Why did they establish this mill? A, to make a living off of redwood products. B, to make wine vats. C, to get away from the law. Or D, to supply local railroads with railroad ties. Go ahead and take your guess. The Corbell brothers came to Humboldt County and established a mill in a town formerly known as North Fork. Why did they establish this mill? And we got a question, I think for the last one. Is this near the lagoon that was created by a tsunami? Yes, many of those lagoons along the coast there were created by tsunamis. So yeah, I want to say this might be freshwater lagoon. Don't quote me on that though. So we got one. Okay. Okay, so we got D. Oh, but then someone just changed his mind. It's B. So he's guessing B. Anyone else got guesses? The Corbell brothers. Dun 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 dun. All right. So the answer is B, to make wine vats. So if you've heard of the company Corbell that produces wines, those are the same brothers. The Corbell brothers came up here from Sonoma. They were pretty popular wine producers. And they came up here to make their own wine vats, save a little bit of money along the way. This is a picture of a redwood stump, 22 feet in diameter from North Fork, which later became Corbell. Great picture. I like looking at all these pictures of all these Victorian people hanging out on tree stumps. Supposedly there was one that was cut down that they turned into a dance floor. So that's kind of fun. All right. So we got round 2, Victoriana. So if you're not familiar with the term Victoriana, it means things related to the Victorian period. So let's go ahead and get started. So the Victorian period is named after Queen Victoria, whose lengthy reign coincided with massive industrialization in Europe, encouraging transportation and the faster movement of information and knowledge. What years did Victoria, whoops, there's a little typo there. What years did Victoria reign? 1876 to 1901, 1850 to 1900, 1890 to 1915, or 1866 to 1904? I know when I was in history classes, I used to hate these year questions. So sorry for those who also don't like these year questions. I'm much more of a story person, get the general points of what was happening rather than, exact years. But it's kind of fun to throw these in occasionally. And I got something fun to say about the Victorian period as it pertains to Humboldt County. So we got one guess for B. Anyone else wants to take a stab at it? All right, let's take a look at the answer. So Victoria reigned from 1876 to 1901, which was the longest reign by any British queen at the time. She was only passed up by the current queen, Queen Elizabeth, I think in 2013 or 2015. So now Queen Elizabeth's been the longest reigning queen for England. A lot of people say, though, that the Victorian period lasts until about 1910 or 1915 because while information traveled really fast, it still didn't travel lightning fast. So there were Victorian trends that didn't make it out to Humboldt County because we're so far away until 9-10 years later. That's kind of a fun little fact. Queen Victoria, you look so happy. All right. The emergence and rapid expansion of logging in Humboldt County and increasing demand for lumber to build homes helped in the rapid construction of elaborate homes built both in the county and outside of it during the Victorian era. These homes, thanks to their elaborate woodworking, have earned the following nickname: sugar castles, gingerbread houses, fairy homes, or just plain old castles. It's a lot of fun looking at these Victorian homes. If you're a fan of Victorian architecture and are interested in seeing people that kind of reenact these elaborate woodworking features, you can go check out Blue Ox Mill here in Eureka. They do Victorian reproduction pieces for homes across the country, which is pretty cool. So go ahead and put your answers in the comments and so we got a guess for B. Sugar castles, gingerbread houses, fairy homes, or castles. I'd almost argue to say you could call all of them, or call homes all of these things. But all right, answer is gingerbread houses. So if you're familiar with the town of Ferndale, this is a home that is down in Ferndale and is oftentimes known as the gingerbread house. It was owned by a doctor, now it's a B&B. Beautiful home. Love to go walk out there and look at that. This is from an old postcard that we have in the museum collection. All right, so these brothers built two of the most recognizable homes in Humboldt County, the Carson Mansion and the Pink Lady, which happened to be neighbors. Was it the Newsom brothers, the Falk brothers, the Minor brothers, or the Bear brothers? And these are two also very notable gingerbread houses right here in Old Town Eureka. You can walk there in about 15 minutes from the Clark. Both beautiful houses. Carson Mansion was almost torn down at one point. There was a group that bought it for $10,000 to save it from demolition, and they made it their clubhouse, which is now the Ingomar Club. So that the group that later became the Ingmar Club purchased the home from the city, so it wasn't torn down, and they saved it. The Pink Lady changed hands multiple times. At one point in time, it was owned by 2 German sisters, and it was confiscated as Nazi property in World War II. And it's changed hands multiple times since then. It was a B&B, it was offices. I think someone had some kind of art sale in it recently. So we got a guess for B. Anyway, those are 2 of my favorite homes in town. And some people say that the Carson Mansion is the most photographed house in America, but I'd almost say that it was, I'd almost say that the White House might be the most photographed home in the world. Either that or Buckingham Palace. Maybe the Taj Mahal? Well, the Taj Mahal isn't a house, my bad. So we got a question. Speaking of the Pink Lady, do we know what color it was originally? I believe it's always been pink, which surprises a lot of people. Victorians liked bright colors, in contrast to most people thinking that they just wore dark colors all the time. But there wasn't color photography. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So it was the Newsom brothers who also drew up the plans for the Carter House Inn, which is nearby. It's a big orange and I want to say yellow Victorian home that was supposed to be built in San Francisco, never got built, and then a local guy found the plans and built it. Built it in more modern times. I think he built it maybe the 80s or the 90s. I can't remember. But anyway, Newsom Brothers. I definitely had to look that up because I couldn't remember if it was spelled like this, like the same, the governor's name, or if it's spelled differently. All right. So this precursor to the modern day projector has a fancy name. I bet it was incredible to see images projected onto the wall for the first time. This item is known as A, magic lantern, B, pneumatic gramophone, C, penny farthing, or D, daguerreotype. Precursor to the modern day projector. That'd be pretty cool, having, only seen pictures in books or magazines or things like that, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's on the wall. That'd be really cool. It'd probably be pretty mind-blowing. Yeah. All right, so we got a guess for A. And these modern day or precursors to the modern day projector were produced for a good amount of time. We have one in the museum collection here. We got another guess for magic lantern. So that's right, it's the magic lantern. So this is a picture of the one we have in the museum collection along with one of the slides. And so if you've ever seen the movie Tarzan, it kind of works in a very similar way to a projector that shows up in that. There would be, this one actually has a gas, not a gas, kind of an oil lantern type wick on the inside of this big round part. So you'd light it and then you'd put the slide between this kind of scope part that sticks out and the light coming out of the lantern. And this is one of the slides. I had hold it up to the light so you could see it. And there'd be stories that would go along with these. I've heard of ones. This one, I'm actually not sure what the story is or if it's just pictures. But I've heard of ones with stories or ones that would have songs that go along with them, which is really cool. So round 3 is what is that? So this is a category where I took things from the museum collection. We took pictures of them. And now you guys get to guess what they are. So it doesn't have multiple choice attributed with it. So you have to type out what you think it is and get specific. So we got this first item. This is in the Neelis Hall collection. You can see some of the baskets in storage in the background. This was a photo taken by our Neelis Hall Registrar Curator Brittany when she was going through doing an inventory of items. So the tape measure kind of gives you an idea of how big it is. It's about 15, 17 inches tall, maybe about a foot wide. So go ahead and type in what you think it is. All right, so we got someone asking for a hint. So this part of it that we're looking at is made out of a hide or an animal skin. And let's see, I want to try to find another hint without totally giving it away. So we got someone says hat box. So we got two people saying hat boxes. Let's see. So another hint is that not everything that would be used with this is shown in the picture. So we got a guess for canteen. That'd be a really big canteen. All right, and I do admit this is probably the most difficult one. I don't know why I put it first. So this is actually a ceremonial drum. So the thing it's missing is the drumstick that would be used to play it. And these are used in gambling games. So there would be, usually it's men that are playing the gambling games. There would be a guy with this drum playing and singing songs for good luck for the person who was gambling. So both sides would have their own drummer drumming along while the game's going on. And we have a number of these drums, and they're pretty incredibly made out of redwood boards with the skin pulled over and then woven in. They're pretty darn cool. We're not sure who made this one. This is a fun one. Don't mind the kind of creepy looking doll mannequin in the background, but take a guess at what this one is. I think this is probably a Victorian period item, or maybe just slightly post-Victorian. This was found while I was looking for items for our curator battle. So if you want to take a guess at what this is or what it is used for, take a guess at it in the comment section. We've been doing these curator battles on Twitter. So there's a museum in the UK, I think, that posts their topic for the week. And one of them was coolest bird, I think it was. So this was one of them that I think I don't know if we sent this one in. I might have just taken a picture of it just because it's kind of cool. Looks like it's coming in from another dimension, scaring children. Okay, we got a guess for hat. I appreciate those guesses. I really wish I knew what kind of bird this is. So if there's anyone tuning in that knows their birds very well, please let me know. I'd love to know what kind of bird it is. I think our records just say tropical bird, which is kind of annoying. So this is a taxidermied bird for a woman's hat. Women's hats like to feature taxidermied birds for a period of time, and it led to massive population loss, particularly for brightly colored birds. And these birds were taxidermied using pretty vicious chemicals. So you gotta be really careful when like arsenic or mercury, all kinds of things. So this is only one of them. We have another one, and they've got these really big plumy feathers. They're pretty cool. All right, so here's another one. But maybe take a guess at who owned it at one point in time. This was a pretty fun find in our collections. So yeah, I was upstairs one day looking at boxes and I found this, but it didn't have an accession number on it, which was pretty unusual. And if you're not familiar with accession numbers, they're the numbers that here it appears on a whiteboard, but they're numbers that are also affixed to each item, so we know what it is, or we can look it up in our database and then find out what it is. So this one didn't have accession numbers, but through some research, we were able to figure out what it was and whose it was. So if you want to take a guess at what it is, and extra points if you know whose it's from. go ahead and put that in the comments section. And I guess to give you a little bit of a hint, so it's, let's see, we've got some felt kind of on the inside, probably wool on the inside, kind of some fringe going on. So we got a guess for Lewis, Davy Crockett. This one might be a bit tricky. So it's made out of deer hide, and the person who owned this had a number of these, and he traveled all around the country, mostly wearing these kind of suits. Deerskin jacket from a trapper or Native Americans. Ooh, that's a pretty good guess. That was very close. So this is actually one of Seth Kinman's buckskin coats, and if you're not familiar with Mr. Seth Kinman, he's probably one of the most loved but also simultaneously most hated people in Humboldt County's history. He was a trapper, but he also was known for murdering local Native American people. So he's kind of got a very varied history. He was known for supplying most of Fort Humboldt with its meat. He killed all kinds of elk to supply them with their meat. In one of his biographies, he says he killed something like 300 bears, but he referred to them as bars rather than bears. And no one really knows if that's true. I tend to take that kind of stuff with a grain of salt. But yeah, one of Seth Kinman's coats. And he traveled all across the country. He sold photos of himself with his kind of quote curiosities, just kind of things that he'd picked up, which included scalps, unfortunately, of local Native people. But he also, part of what made him famous was he made these chairs for a couple presidents. So some of them are made out of elk antlers, just kind of stuck together in a really cool way. One of them was made out of a bear skin that has secret levers. So if you pulled the lever, a bear would pop out from under the chair, or a bear's head would pop out from under the chair. Recently, he came back into the news with some pistols that he received from one of, I think it was President Buchanan. So he was kind of a showman. He just kind of toured around and was, I am Mountain Man Seth Kinman. So he's got another very interesting history if you're ever looking for a very controversial character. So we got Buffalo Bill. So yeah, this is kind of a fun one. And by fun, I mean kind of scary looking. This was on display recently. Well, recently as in over a year ago. Oh my, time flies. As part of our industries exhibit. So go ahead and take some guesses. I guess I put some really scary stuff in this time's what is this thing trivia. So it's just been one of those days. And you'll notice there's some other things kind of off to the side. There's also a huge ball of twine under this, under this kind of tool here in the center. I'm not really sure why there's a giant ball of twine in storage. One of these days I'll go and check it out. But kind of off to the side, there's some shuttles, which are used in weaving. So we got to guess a card for weaving. We do have one of those, but this is not it. All right. So this is a flax processing tool. So flax is a natural fiber that, to kind of get it all straightened out, you have to run it through these really big spike things. And we have some other ones that maybe I'll put in a future one for all you tuning in this time. You might be able to get an easy question next time. But you'd put the flax through these spikes to kind of get it ready for further processing. All right, and I think this is the last one for this category. So this is a piece of metal. Let's see, it's probably 8 or 9 inches long, maybe 3 inches tall. And this is kind of a cool cool little piece of history. And it's solid metal. I'm not very good at identifying metals, but might be iron, maybe, I'm not sure. So go ahead and take a guess at what this item is. And this came into the museum last year. The little accession number that's shown here, 2019-92. So it was a donation in 2019. It was the 9th donation that year, and this is the 2nd item from that particular donation. So we got a guess for axe head. Clearly an axe head. Someone says an adze. All right, so this is a lumber wedge. So when you're chopping lumber, this would be a piece that would be put into the wood and then hit with a hammer to break the pieces of wood apart. Someone said heavy metal, haha. It is very heavy, actually. This thing's heavy. So this was made by Tony Lisa, a local blacksmith who had a shop on 4th Street near Commercial. Costello was a competitor who had a shop nearby. And I think one of the wedges that was also donated at the same time was made by Costello and has his maker's stamp on the side of it. So this was a little bit of a trick one. Looks like an axe head, definitely looks like an axe head. But it's missing the piece that would attach the axe head to the actual handle of the axe. So round 4, name the pattern. Oh man, we're running short on time. Round 4, name the pattern. So these photos are from the Clark Museum's Basket and Weaver's book, and Ron Johnson's Made for the Trade Basket catalog. So Ron Johnson put together a number of exhibits with local basketry items, and he produces these really awesome catalogs. We have copies of them here at the museum. We also have about 1.5 bajillion copies of this Basket and Weaver's book. So if any of these pique your interest, feel free to come on by when we reopen and come check them out. All right, so we got this first item. This is a little trinket basket. So it's made out of bear grass, which is the light tan color. Go ahead and take a guess at what the pattern is called. I don't know why I put the trick pictures first. So this is a little bit tricky. But go ahead and take a guess at what the pattern name is. So besides having bear grass fern, or bear grass, this also has maidenhair fern, which is the black part, which is really hard to work with because it's very brittle. It kind of breaks really easily. And then the yellowish color is porcupine quills dyed with wolf moss, which is pretty cool. Sometimes it's dyed with Oregon grape root, I believe. That might not quite be right. It's Oregon something or other. And yeah, so this is a trinket basket. So we got we got 2 guesses, sawtooth and caterpillar. So any other guesses? Any other guesses? I only know quilt patterns, says my mom. That's true, but you'll be surprised. A lot of quilt patterns and basket patterns have somewhat similar names. So this one is obsidian blade pointing up. So typically obsidian blade is kind of this parallelogram shape shown where it says typical obsidian blade. Sometimes in older baskets, you'll see things called old obsidian blade where it's just kind of a rectangle. Sometimes that's also known as stacked wood. And so this is a basket from 1930 and it's made by an unknown Karuk weaver. This appeared in the Baskets and Weavers book. So this is in the Clark collections. Pretty nice little basket. So you can imagine taking that obsidian blade shape and turning it about 90 degrees. And that's kind of what the interior black shape is that obsidian blade pointing up. It's that parallelogram shape. And as you kind of look at the pattern more, you'll start seeing parallelograms showing up all over the place in this pattern. So I do admit that's kind of a tricky one. Sorry about that. The devil's banana slug is one guess. Oh man. So this is a fancy cap. Go ahead and take a guess at what the pattern is called. So these basket caps, sometimes when people first look at them, they say, why is that bowl upside down. It's a basket cap it's meant to wear on the head. And some of these fancier ones are made for ceremonial usages and things like that. And some of them are made for the trade as well. So sometimes you'll see some with really elaborate designs. Sometimes are made for the trade. Sometimes you can tell it's made for the trade by the inclusion of kind of non-traditional pieces, that kind of things. So we got to guess. This one says waves. David says waves. I could see that. That'd kind of be a cool name for this pattern. Yeah, so this one also includes, it's beargrass, which is that tan color, and then maidenhair fern is that black color. Snake nose is another guess. Dun, 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 dun. And I noticed this one has a light tan and a dark tan. I'm not really sure how they got that light tan. It might just be they sorted out their beargrass and some of it was lighter than the other. All right, last chance for guesses. So this one, David was right. It's called snake nose. Oh, I got a guess for flying geese. Sunburst is another guess. So this is called the snake nose pattern. And this is a basket cap from 1912 from an unknown Yurok weaver. And snake nose, there's sometimes there'll be stories about these patterns, about where they came from, how they got their names. Some of them have stories, some of them don't. One of them had to do with snakes as a character was seeing someone doing some weaving and said, I want to lend my nose to this project, and just kind of stuck their nose on the basket, and that's how we got the triangle pattern. Some of them have stories, some of them don't, and of course everyone's got a different story. So, all right, this is a fun one. This is a little teeny trinket basket, and this is a great picture. You can see how good the weave is on there. So take a guess at what this pattern is called. And this one has that maidenhair fern, that light tan beargrass, and then I think in those little inner triangles, that's porcupine quills dyed with wolf moss. It's kind of fun looking at these close-ups of these baskets. You can see how uniform the weave is. Sometimes when you look really close at it, it almost reminds me of corn. So we got a guess that says cat nose. I could definitely see whiskers if this was a cat nose. Stairs, butterfly, butterfly stairs. I think there is a pattern called butterfly, but this isn't it. All right, so last chance for guesses. Oh man, I really gotta hustle if we're gonna get through this whole thing in an hour. Someone said kitchen sink. Kitchen sink, my goodness. All right. So the answer is swallowtail. And this is a fancy basket by Ina Faustino, who's a Yurok. This was woven around 1940, 1950 in the era of the trade basket. And I was trying to figure out why it's called swallowtail, and I found this picture, and I mean, I think this is why it's called swallowtail, because it's kind of got that same shape, but I'm not really sure. Jury's still out on that, why it's called swallowtail. But this is, a lot of people see this kind of as a more modern design, and it kind of looks like some quilt patterns have this very similar kind of shape, these hourglass triangle kind of thing going on. So, yeah. And I'm not sure if that's a local swallow. If there's any birders on this video, hopefully you're not upset. Okay. I think this is the last one for this category. So this is the top of a fancy cap. We're looking at this kind of main design. It's got that maidenhair fern in that black, that tan beargrass, and then a little bit of that yellow wolf moss dyed porcupine quill. So go ahead and take a guess. And I kind of like this one. Once you know what the answer is, you can kind of not ever unsee it. And kind of a cool thing about basket caps is they usually have 3 spots for designs: the top, the side, and then kind of the rim. You can't really see, of course, the sides and the rim on this one, but you can definitely see how the top can look very different than the rest of the basket. Gotta guess frogs. Ah, they do look like frogs. I hope you guys are having as fun a time as I am. This is actually really fun. This is also a fancy cap. And yeah, a lot of times fancy caps feature this maidenhair fern black work because it is so hard to work with. You know, it might not be necessarily showing up on a work cap where you might wear, you know, every day. This was something that's fancy that you'd wear for important events. All right, if you got your guesses, bring them in. So this design is known as the crab design. And this is a women's ceremonial cap woven by Melissa Myers, Xerox. And this is from around 1930 to 1940. You can kind of see the crab body and then the crab claws. There's other versions of this design too that really bring out that crab looking shape. It's a lot of fun. So okay, here we go. Whoa, this is gonna be a lightning round. We got like 10 minutes. So this is round 5. This is Ferndale. Kind of doing a lot of Southern Humboldt this time around. This is round 5 Ferndale. So this is with questions drawn from information in the Images of America Ferndale book by the Ferndale Museum. This lives right next to our, or lives in our office on one of our bookcases. And this is kind of a fun book to look at, you know, small town Humboldt County. So Ferndale is sometimes called Cream City by locals. Why? First is there was a massive flood of milk in town following the overturning of a milk truck on Main Street, or milkmen continued serving the town into the mid-1990s, or it was a major contributor to the dairy supply in the county and exports through milk, butter, cream, and other dairy products, or it has a lot of those gingerbread houses, which goes well with cream. I've mostly heard Ferndale referred to as Cream City by the archivists at the Humboldt County Historical Society, but I have seen it mentioned other places as well. So we got a guess for C, major contributor to the dairy supply in the county and exports through milk, butter, cream, and other dairy products. Anyone else want to guess? Gotta be C. Someone else guessed. Gotta be C. Yeah. Okay. D, just because I want that to be the answer. Yeah, I was coming up with answers, and I wanted to come up with some ones that would be crazy, but maybe not crazy enough to not be true. So, okay. So the answer is C. It is a major contributor to the dairy supply in the county and exported out of the county through milk, butter, cream, and other dairy products. Dairy has been a pretty consistent export and, you know, agricultural category in Humboldt County through a good chunk of the area's history. So while other agricultural products were booming and busting and crashing and potatoes, famines, and all kinds of stuff, the dairy industry actually did pretty well throughout kind of the whole run of it, especially because they were able to do butter, which could be transported on ships and trains and things like that. And we're known pretty well for the cream products that come out of our area. This is a fun picture. This is from the Ferndale Cemetery. It's built on kind of the only hill in town. I heard a story that said that this cemetery was built on the hill because it was the only land that wasn't really usable for agriculture. So it was picked out to be a good cemetery spot. All right, so Ferndale is home to many fun summertime activities and some longest running titles. Ferndale has the longest running county fair, mule races, fireman's picnic, or Holy Ghost Festival. Unfortunately, pretty much all of these have been canceled for this year. So I'm not sure if they maintain their longest running title if everybody's gets canceled. Go ahead and take a guess. Ferndale is kind of a fun place for the summertime things because it is such a small town. So we got a guess for C. Yeah, one thing that's, well, it's not a summertime activity, but I almost put it on here, was the Ferndale Tractor Parade around Christmas, which I've always wanted to go down and see. It's a great counterpart to the Trucker Parade held in Eureka every year, but I haven't gone down and seen it yet. It's on the list. Hopefully that doesn't get canceled this year, but who knows? So we got to answer for C, and then someone says, oh, I want it to be D. So funny thing, there is a Holy Ghost Festival that is hosted in Ferndale, and it's a Portuguese festival. They are all real. Yeah, there is a county fair. There are mule races. The mule races are pretty fun. There is a fireman's picnic, and there is a Holy Ghost Festival. So, all right. So the answer is county fair. Ferndale's county fair has been running since the Humboldt County Fair has been running since 1861, and it's been in Ferndale since 1896. And they do mule races at the Ferndale Fairgrounds during the Humboldt County Fair. They're usually held before the horse races are held, and they're a lot of fun to watch because sometimes the mules are like, nope, I'm not running today. That's not happening. That is not in the cards for you. I'm sorry, buddy. They're a lot of fun to watch. All right, so we got the Kinetic Sculpture Race, now a 3-day journey through Arcata, Samoa, Eureka, and Ferndale, originated with a race down Main Street, Ferndale on this holiday weekend in 1969. So we got Memorial Day weekend, Father's Day weekend, Mother's Day weekend, or Labor Day weekend. And the Kinetic Sculpture Race, if you're not familiar with the area, or the race, I guess, is a race where it's all human-powered art. So it's bicycles that are all decked out, usually kind of all welded together, and all decorated out with different themes. A lot of times there'll be support crews that follow in case a wheel falls off or something like that. So we got a guess for B. We got another guess for B. And if you've never seen the Kinetic Sculpture Race, you can look them up on the internet. They have a museum, and I believe they did some kind of live streaming video thing this year because they weren't able to have the race. I like to think it's one of the things that defines Humboldt County as an interesting place, just because it is kind of hootenanny at its best. So we got a guess for D. All right, so Mother's Day weekend. And this is an example of one of the finishing racers trundling into Ferndale. This is not in 1969, this is later. But this is one of the more toned down machines. Sometimes you'll see ones that are, 10 bikers long and looks like a dragon and all kinds of stuff. If you've never seen the Kinetic Sculpture Race, I definitely think it's one of those things that you should witness at least once in your life. But it's a lot of fun. And it's probably one of the wackiest things you'll see in your life. So the bridge over the Eel to Ferndale, known as Fern Bridge, was completed in this year, and it was known as the Queen of Bridges for being the longest functional poured concrete bridge in the world. And it still holds that title today. So was that built in 1911, 1900, 1914, or 1926? And we're looking for the year that it was completed. This is a really cool bridge. I'll show you a picture of it. It kind of reminds me of the London Bridge that is now, weirdly enough, in Arizona. And there's a whole fun story about that too. But Fern Bridge is really pretty. It's a little harrowing to drive over if you have a large car, but there's definitely big trucks that go over it and it's fine, but it gets a little scary because it feels really narrow. So go ahead and take your guess. And I kind of like the creativity. We're going to call this bridge Fern Bridge. It's the bridge to Ferndale. And there's an actual little town on the 101 side of Fern Bridge that is also called Fern Bridge. It's got a pretty small population. So go ahead and take your guesses. And I got, oh yeah, I shouldn't be yawning. It's almost 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Oh man. Yeah, all right. So it was completed in 1911, which I think was, yeah, was the first answer, A. So this is a picture of Fern Bridge, looking from the Ferndale side to the other side. And it's crazy because you look at this bridge now and then you look at it in this picture, and the geography looks drastically different. And there's a lot of reasons for that. This is the last bridge you cross over before the Eel River ends up in the ocean. And this looks like a pretty darn early on picture of Fern Bridge. So a fun other little fact about this bridge that I included, I called it the bridge that could. So this bridge survived a boatload of floods, 1911, 13, 14, 15, 37, 53, 55, 64, and 86. The 1964 flood was the one that and it was the Christmas week flood, or the Christmas, I think the 64 flood was also kind of around Christmas. But yeah, look at that, 1955 Christmas week flood. The flood waters measured 27.7 feet deep at Fern Bridge, which is pretty spectacular. And yeah, this is crazy. So in 64, pretty much every bridge on the Eel River was destroyed, except for Fern Bridge. And a lot of that had to do with the fact not only that was there a lot of water, but there were all these logs that were getting picked up from logging going on upriver. So there'd kind of just be these redwood torpedoes coming down the river, just absolutely destroying bridges. And there's a really interesting video on the 64 flood that's available, I think for free online. And it was produced by, I think, what later became Caltrans, documenting the flood and then kind of the repair effort afterwards. But yeah, the flood level, almost 30 feet of water. And there was something about like 200,000 cubic feet of water per second going by, which is a lot. Just imagine 200,000 basketballs floating down the river, all at the same time, every second. So how did you do? How did you guys do on your quiz? I think I might have shorted you guys a question on this one, but yeah, I hope you guys all had a good time participating in this. I know I had a pretty good time hosting. It was fun looking up and coming up with different answers for this little trivia game. And yeah, let us know how you did in the comments. I know Dana's been keeping track as well, but it's kind of fun also just to see what everyone comes up with. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Let us know what categories you'd like to see in future trivia challenges. You can put them in the comments. You can send them to me through email. You can send them to the clerk through email. You can send it to us through social media. There's lots of different ways to get a hold of us. We're thinking about doing a trivia version maybe once a month. So be sure to keep tabs on when we're doing this again. Yeah. So thanks for tuning in. And I hope to see you guys soon. And to answer your question, Dana, real quick, I need to know who got the first and second questions, as my video wasn't working. Also, was 1911 A or B for the Eel River? It was A. And Dana will be tallying up scores, so we'll get in contact with you if you won, and we'll figure out how to get you your prize. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week on Ask the Curator. Dun, 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 dun.